The first time I saw Commander Vela Thorn walk into my classroom, I thought someone had delivered the wrong human. My name is Crystal, Senior Education Coordinator for the Galactic Youth Integration Program on Station Helix 9. I have spent 23 cycles teaching adolescent beings from 47 different species how to coexist without destroying each other or the furniture. I have seen bioluminescent tantrums, gravitifying food fights, and one memorable incident involving a Krillian student who accidentally molted during finals week. I considered myself unshockable. I was wrong. Principal Crix, the human female, stood in my doorway, military posture so rigid she could have been carved from stone, dark hair pulled back with brutal efficiency, eyes that had seen things I probably did not want to know about, and a service record that, according to the file clutched in my secondary appendages, included single-handedly defending an entire colony ship from Voran raiders while the captain evacuated civilians. She was 16. Standard years old. Yes, come in, come in. I gestured with 3 of my limbs, trying to project welcoming authority. My species, the CS, pride ourselves on our calming presence. Our soft purple skin and multiple gentle limbs make us ideal educators. We do not inspire fear. We inspire trust and maybe the occasional request for extra credit. Vela entered like she was clearing a hostile room. Quick glance at exits. Assessment of potential threats, which, in this case, was a potted plant from Andromeda 7, defensive positioning with her back to the wall. The whole performance took perhaps 2 seconds. Please sit. I indicated the human-sized chair I had requisitioned specifically for this meeting. She sat barely perched on the edge like she might need to launch into action at any moment. Behind her, hovering nervously in the doorway, was her guardian, a tired old-looking woman named Dr. Kelso, who worked in Station Medical. So I pulled up her file on my data tablet. Vela Thorn, age 16, previously stationed on the military frigate Steadfast, participated in 17 combat operations, received the Star Cross for valor, the Defender's Merit, and I paused, rereading to make sure I had not misunderstood, and a formal reprimand for insubordination. The Admiral was going to sacrifice 3rd Platoon, Vela said, voice flat. I disagreed loudly. We saved them anyway. I see. I made a note, and now you are here because Dr. Kelso stepped forward. The military psychologists recommended normal adolescent socialization. Vela has been in combat situations since she was 13. She needs to be a kid. Vela's expression suggested she would rather fight another dozen Vorthan raiders than endure high school. I could relate. Teaching high school sometimes felt like combat. Well, Vela, welcome to Helix Academy. We are the premier educational institution for multi-species integration. In this sector, our students come from all over the galaxy to learn together, grow together, and prepare for futures in diplomacy, science, and interspecies cooperation. Bella's eyes had not stopped scanning the room. Security protocols here are terrible. Anyone could walk in. No blast shields on the windows. Single exit point. And is that ventilation system up to code? Because I count at least 3 ways someone could pump toxins through there. Oh, ancestors, help me. This is a school, I said gently, not a military installation. Schools can be targets. Yes, but we have station security for That your job here is to attend classes, make friends, and try to enjoy being young. Her look clearly communicated what she thought about that plan. Dr. Kelso placed a hand on Vela's shoulder. Please, sweetie, just try for me. Something softened in the girl's face, just a fraction, just enough for me to see the child underneath the soldier. Fine, I will try. Wonderful. I activated my cheerful educator voice. You will start tomorrow. Standard schedule: mathematics, galactic history, xenobiology, interspecies communications, and physical education. I think you will find our curriculum quite engaging. Vela nodded once, military acknowledgement, then she stood, thanked me with formal precision, and left. Dr. Kelso lingered. She has nightmares, she said quietly, and flashbacks, and she does not know how to talk to people her own age anymore. Please be patient with her. Of course, I assured her. We have worked with challenging students before. What I did not say was that our challenging students were usually dealing with homework stress, not post-traumatic stress from actual warfare. But how hard could it be? Provide structure, positive reinforcement, gentle guidance. I had been doing this for decades. Again, I was wrong. Day one started promisingly enough. I personally welcomed Vela to homeroom, introduced her to the class of 32 students representing 19 different species, and assigned her a seat next to Pip, a friendly centurion whose enthusiasm for making new friends was legendary. Hi, Pip's translator rendered their chirping into cheerful standard. I am Pip. What is your favorite color? Mine is infrared, but I know humans cannot see that, so probably yours is different, which is totally fine because diversity makes us stronger. And oh, wow, you have really intense eyes. Do all humans stare like that, or is it just you? Vela blinked once. Blue. That is a great color, very calming. Although technically the wavelength we perceive as blue is actually quite energetic if you think about the electromagnetic spectrum, which I do frequently because I am studying to be an astrophysicist. And this continued for several minutes. Vela sat perfectly still, hands folded on her desk, expression neutral. To an untrained observer, she appeared to be listening politely. I, however, noticed the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes tracked every movement in the room, the barely perceptible flinch when another student dropped a data pad. First period was galactic history with Professor Mel, a scholarly Draxian whose lectures could make paint drying seem exciting by comparison. I checked on the class remotely via surveillance feed, standard procedure for monitoring new students. Everything seemed fine until Professor Mellon began discussing the Vorthon expansion wars. I watched Vela's hand curl into a fist, watched her breathing change, watched her eyes go distant and cold. The Vorans utilized psychological warfare extensively. Professor Mel droned on. Oblivious, they would broadcast the screams of captured soldiers to break enemy morale. Quite effective if morally questionable. Does anyone know why this tactic was particularly successful against human colonies? Vela stood up, chair scraped backward. Every student turned to look. Because humans have strong pack bonding instincts, she said, voice eerily calm. We cannot ignore distress calls from our own. The Vorthons knew this. They knew we would come for our people even when tactically inadvisable. They used it against us, made us choose between strategic sense and basic Humanity. The classroom had gone silent. They did it on Colony 7, Vila continued. Broadcast for 6 hours, took them 4 hours. To break the defense perimeter, took us 2 hours to make them stop screaming. Professor Mellon's dorsal ridge had gone pale. Miss Thorne, perhaps we should discuss this in a less graphic manner. You asked why it was effective. I answered, yes, but the other students, they might find such details disturbing, and reality is disturbing. Vela sat back down. Pretending otherwise does not change that. I immediately contacted Professor Melm through his communicator. Let her be, I advised. Continue the lesson. He did, though considerably more carefully. Vela said nothing else for the remainder of class, but I noticed several students stealing glances at her, looks ranging from curiosity to unease to something that might have been awe. Second period brought a different problem. Mathematics should have been safe. Numbers do not trigger trauma. Equations do not cause flashbacks. I assigned remote monitoring to my assistant and focused on other administrative duties. Big mistake. 20 minutes into class, my communicator erupted with an urgent alert. Principal Cricks, we have a situation in mathematics. I rushed over all 6 limbs. Pumping, burst through the door to find chaos, not violent chaos, thankfully. Social chaos. Vela stood at the front of the room, marker in hand, having apparently corrected the teacher's orbital trajectory calculations. No, see, you forgot to account for gravitational lensing from the nearby stellar mass. She was explaining to Professor Quinn, a brilliant but occasionally absent-minded mathematician. If you run the numbers with relativistic corrections, the projectile curves here, not here, which means the intercept window is actually 14 seconds shorter than you calculated. Professor Quinn stared at the board, then at Vela, then back at the board. You are correct. How did you, where did you learn relativistic ballistics? Targeting systems on a frigate require manual backup calculations. I ran firing solutions for 8 months at age 15. Necessity is an excellent teacher. Several students had their translation devices out, frantically trying to follow the advanced mathematics. Others just looked confused. One Trilaxian in the back appeared to be crying, though with their species it was hard to tell if that meant distress or extreme fascination. Miss Thorne, I interrupted gently, while your mathematical skills are impressive, perhaps we should let Professor Quinn continue with the planned lesson. She looked at me, looked at the professor, nodded once, and returned to her seat. Professor Quinn, to his credit, adapted well. It seems we have a guest lecturer. Miss Thorne, would you mind explaining how these calculations apply to real-world scenarios? And that is how second period mathematics became an impromptu seminar on combat ballistics. Lunch period proved equally eventful. The cafeteria at Helix Academy is designed to accommodate wildly different dietary needs. We have nutrient vats for species that absorb food through skin contact, heat lamps for cold-blooded students, specialized atmosphere bubbles for methane breathers, and a human compatible food station that serves what they assure me are authentic Earth dishes, though I have my doubts about anything labeled mystery meat. I observed from my usual monitoring post. As Vela navigated the lunch line, she selected her food with military efficiency, minimal waste, maximum Protein, then came the tricky part. Finding somewhere to sit, high school. Social dynamics are complicated enough. With one species, with 19 they become a doctoral thesis in chaos theory. We have the athlete crowd, mostly Krelians and Dreenids who bond over competitive sports, the academic cluster, multi-esses, but united by love of learning, the arts, collective, a bizarre, beautiful mix of students who communicate as much through sculpture and song as through words, the loners, the rebels, the social butterflies. Where would a teenage super soldier fit? Vela scanned the room like she was choosing a defensive position. Then, surprising me, she walked directly to a table occupied by three of our most notorious troublemakers. Max, a human with a record of discipline issues, Torque, a massive Krelian who had been suspended twice for fighting, and Sis, a Delilian whose attitude problem was legendary. This seat taken, Vela asked. Max looked up, sizing her up. Depends, you going to knock on us to the principal? Why would I do that? New kids usually try too hard to fit in, makes them zuck-ups. Vela sat down without waiting for permission. I do not suck up. I also do not care what you do as long as it does not affect me. Torque leaned forward. In most species, this would be aggressive. With Krelians, it is curious. You are the soldier, yes, the one who fights the Vorthons, fought past tense. I am a student now, but you killed them. Sis's voice carried a mix of fascination and something darker, the Vorthons. Vela bit into her sandwich, chewed, swallowed. Yes, how many? Enough. Do you feel bad about it? Max asked, not challenging, genuinely curious. She considered this. I feel bad that it was necessary, not that I did it. Silence. Then Torque laughed, a booming sound that rattled nearby trays. I like her. She is honest, not like these others who pretend everything is happy smiles and friendship. I debated intervening. This group had caused me more headaches than the rest of the school combined, but something made me hold back. Vela was smiling barely, just a slight curve at the corner of her mouth, but it was genuine. Maybe trouble kids understood each other. Fourth period was xenobiology, which I thought would be safe. I was developing a pattern of being wrong. The class was studying sensory physiology, specifically their complex auditory system that perceives ranges far beyond human capability. The teacher, Dr. Shin, a human herself, was demonstrating with recording equipment. Now humans can hear approximately 20 to 20,000 hertz, she explained. Centurions can perceive up to 80,000 hertz. To them, our world is full of sounds we cannot even imagine. Pip, would you mind demonstrating? Pip cheerfully activated their sound projector, emitting a frequency that made several students clap hands over their ears. Vela moved before anyone realized what was happening. One moment sitting at her desk, the next crouched behind an overturned table, hands covering her head. Incoming, she shouted. Everyone down, cover your ears. They are using sonic disruptors. The room froze. Dr. Shin quickly shut off the demonstration. Sweetie, it is okay. It is just a teaching tool. You are safe. But Vela was not hearing her. Her eyes were distant, locked on some memory I could not see. Her breathing came in rapid gasps. Combat ready, but trapped in a classroom, fighting enemies that were not there. I rushed in slowly, carefully. Bella, look at me. You are on Helix Station. You are in Dr. Shin's classroom, there is no attack. You are safe, her eyes snapped to mine. For a moment I saw raw terror, then, gradually awareness returned. She looked around, saw 31 students staring. At her, saw the overturned furniture. Saw her own hands shaking. She stood up mechanically. I apologize. Clean this up. No need, Dr. Shin said. Softly, are you okay? I am fine. Soldier mask snapped back into place. May I be excused? I nodded. She left. Walked, not ran. Maintained dignity even in retreat, but I saw her hands still trembling as she disappeared down the corridor. Dr. Shin looked at me with concern. What do we do? What we always do, I said. We help her. I found Vela 20 minutes later in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She did not turn when I approached. I scared them. She said quietly, you startled them. There is a difference. I cannot do this. Her voice cracked. I cannot be normal. I do not know how. I settled beside her, using my lower limbs to anchor myself, while my upper ones gestured gently. Bella, nobody expects you to be normal. Normal is boring. Normal is overrated. What we expect is for you to be yourself, whoever that is, and to try. Just try. Myself as a soldier. Soldiers do not belong in schools. Why not? Students learn. You learn to be a soldier, did you not? Perhaps now you can learn to be something else too, not instead of in addition to. She finally looked at me, young eyes that had seen too much. What if I cannot? Then we help. You figure it out. That is what teachers do. A long silence, then barely audible. Thank you. The rest of the day passed without major incident, though I kept close watch. Physical education was interesting. Vela demonstrated combat moves that left our instructor both impressed and slightly concerned, but no flashbacks. Triggered interspecies communications went smoothly, possibly because she spent the entire period listening rather than participating. When the final bell rang, I breathed what I hoped was not premature relief. Day 1 complete. Vela had survived. The school had survived. Small victories. I was completing end-of-day reports when my communicator chimed. Security alert. Situation in the South Corridor. I arrived to find Vela pressed against a wall, 3 larger students surrounding her, not our troublemakers from lunch. Different crowd, the entitled ones, the bullies who thought their family connections made them untouchable. The ringleader, a draconid named Kess, loomed over her. So you think you are tough, think you are special because you played soldier. Bella said nothing, but I noticed her stance, weight balanced, hands loose, ready. I asked you a question, human, or are you too scared to answer? I am not scared. Vela's voice was ice. I am debating whether hitting you would be worth the discipline report. Kess laughed, reached out to shove her. He never completed the motion. I am not entirely sure what happened. One moment, Kess was standing. The next he was on the floor, Vela's hand on his throat, knee on his chest, leverage applied with surgical precision. Do not touch me, she said quietly. Ask nicely next time. Then she released him, stepped back, and walked away like nothing had happened. Kess's friends helped him up, shock written across their faces. I let them scramble off before approaching Vela. That was inadvisable, I said. He touched me without permission. Yes, but we have protocols for dealing with bullies. Violence is not one of them. She turned, and for the first time, I saw real emotion crack through her. Control. Do you know what the last person who Grabbed me like that was trying to do. He was a Vorthan soldier attempting to drag me to an interrogation chamber. I broke his arm, stole his weapon, and used it to free 17 prisoners. You want me to file a complaint for him instead? Write a strongly worded letter, report him to administration. I had no answer. For that, I thought so, she resumed. Walking. Vela, wait. She stopped but did not turn around. You are right, I admitted. Your experiences have taught you responses that are appropriate for war but not for school. This is my failure, not yours. I should have prepared better, should have understood better. I am sorry. Now she turned. Surprise flickered across her face. Tomorrow will be better, I promised. We will find accommodations, adjustments, ways to help you transition. You are not alone in this. For a long moment she studied me, then finally she nodded. Okay, tomorrow. She left. I returned to my office and immediately began researching trauma-informed educational practices for combat veterans. I contacted the school counselor. I reached out to military psychologists. I prepared modification plans for every class Vela would attend, because here is what I realized. Thorn was not a problem to be solved. She was a student who had survived the unsurvivable and was now trying to navigate something arguably harder, high school. If she could face Vorin raiders, surely we could face this challenge together. Day 2 would be better, I hoped. Day 2 began with an explosion. Not a literal explosion, thankfully. Though given Vela's background, I had briefly prepared contingency plans for that possibility. No, this was a social explosion, the kind that happens when you put 19 different species of teenagers in one building and one of them casually disarms a bully with military precision. By morning, everyone knew about the Kess incident. The hallways buzzed with speculation, exaggeration, and outright fabrication. I heard at least 5 different versions before first period, ranging from moderately accurate to absurdly theatrical. My favorite claimed Vela had defeated 7 draconids while blindfolded and reciting mathematical formulas. Teenagers are reliably unreliable narrators. I intercepted Vela at the entrance. She arrived exactly on time. Another military habit, and looked surprised to see me waiting. Good morning, I said pleasantly. Walk with me. She fell into step beside me, scanning for threats that did not exist. Old habits die hard, so I began. Carefully, I have made some arrangements. Professor Mel has agreed to give you alternative assignments. During war history discussions, Dr. Shin will provide advanced warning before any high-frequency demonstrations. And I have scheduled you for twice weekly sessions with Counselor Ran, who specializes in transition therapy. Vela's jaw tightened. I do not need therapy. Everyone needs therapy. I see Counselor Ran monthly myself. Dealing with adolescents requires professional mental health support. Trust me on this. A ghost of a smile. Progress. Also, I continued, I have moved you to advanced combat theory for your elective period. Taught by Commander Vask, retired military, 30 years experience. I thought you might appreciate a class where your skills are assets rather than complications. She stopped walking, looked at me with something that might have been gratitude. Thank you, you are welcome. Now shall we get you to homeroom before Pip explodes from anticipation? They have been waiting by your desk. Since the doors opened, true to my word. Pip was practically vibrating with excitement when we arrived. Vela, you are here. I was worried maybe you transferred because yesterday seemed rough, but I am so glad you did not. Because I made you a friendship bracelet. Well, technically it is a friendship wavelength modulator because I am not really built for traditional bracelets, but it serves the same symbolic purpose. And I color-coded it to your favorite wavelength, which you said was blue, so I calibrated it to 470 nm, which is a really nice shade of blue, and Vela accepted the device, which emitted a soft blue glow. Thank you, Pip. This is very thoughtful. Really, you like it? Oh, good, because I was nervous you might think it was weird or overly enthusiastic, or it is perfect. Vela attached it to her uniform sleeve. The blue light pulsed steadily. Pip's entire body seemed to brighten with happiness. Several other students watched this exchange with interest. I noticed the troublemaker trio, Max, Torque, and Sis, nodding approvingly from their usual corner. First period was galactic history again. Professor Mel, bless his cautious heart, had completely restructured his lesson plan. Instead of war, he focused on the Treaty of Proxima, a diplomatic triumph that prevented war through negotiation. The key, he explained, was understanding that different species value different things. Humans value autonomy and choice. Centurions value harmony and collective wisdom. Draconids value honor and direct communication. The treaty succeeded because it acknowledged these differences rather than demanding uniformity. I watched Vela take notes, actual notes, engaged, interested learning. Then a student raised their hand, Jax, a Trilaxian with more curiosity than sense. Professor, is it true Vela fought in the Vorin conflicts? Could she tell us about it from a historical perspective? The classroom went silent. Everyone turned to look at Vela. Professor Mel opened his mouth, probably to deflect, but Vela spoke first. What do you want to know? Jay seemed surprised to get an actual response. What was it like? The fighting. Vela set down her stylus. Terrifying, exhausting, necessary. The Vorthons do not negotiate. They expand, conquer, and assimilate. Diplomacy fails when one side refuses to acknowledge the other has a right to exist. That is why treaties like Proxima matter. They only work when both parties want peace. Vorthons did not want peace. They wanted territory, so we gave them war instead. But you were just a kid, another student said. Why did they let you fight? They did not let me. I was on a colony transport when the Vorthons attacked. The crew died in the first wave. Someone had to take the gunnery station. I was the closest person with working hands and a pulse. You do what survival requires. Professor Mellon cleared his throat gently, and this, students, illustrates why prevention is preferable to conflict. Wars create situations where children must become soldiers. Diplomacy prevents that necessity. Miss Thorne's experience, while remarkable, represents a failure of the systems meant to protect young people. Vela considered this, nodded slowly. Fair point. The discussion shifted back to treaty mechanics, but something had changed. The other students looked at Vela differently now, not with fear or awe, but with understanding. She was not a hero or a monster. She was someone who had survived impossible circumstances, just like many of them in their own ways. Second period brought advanced combat. theory, and I admit I was curious how this would unfold. Commander Vask was a legend, a Krillian who had served in 6 different military campaigns before retiring to teaching. His classroom was part dojo, part lecture hall, part museum of weapons from 100 worlds. I observed remotely, respecting the combat space protocols. Vila entered, took one look around, and visibly relaxed. This was familiar territory. Weapons racks, training mats, tactical displays, a language she spoke fluently. Commander Vask looked up from his desk. 4 eyes, massive frame, dorsal plate scarred from decades of combat. Ah, the infamous Veil of Thorn. Your reputation precedes you, sir. Military acknowledgement, crisp and automatic. None of that here. I am Brask, you are Vela. We are colleagues who study the art of not dying. Sit. She sat. 11 other students were already present, a mix of species, all looking either very serious or very nervous. Brask activated a holographic display. Today we discuss asymmetric warfare, specifically how smaller forces defeat larger ones through superior tactics. Vila, you defended a colony ship with a crew of 7 against a Vorthon assault group numbering approximately 40. How? Expected hesitation, trauma response. Shut down. Instead, Vela leaned forward. Engaged geometry and psychology. Ship's corridors created natural choke points. I used those to force engagements where numbers did not matter, 1-on-1 or at most 1-on-2. Fort hens rely on overwhelming force. When you deny them that advantage, they hesitate. That hesitation is fatal. Good, what else? Sound. Their armor has auditory sensors. I used the ship's intercom to create phantom movements, made them chase echoes while I repositioned, divided their forces, defeated them piecemeal. Vask's mandibles clicked in approval. The Krillian equivalent of applause. Excellent, classic application of Sun Tzu principles. Never fight the enemy on their terms. Create your battlefield. Control the engagement parameters. Class, this is why we study history. These lessons are ancient because they work. For the next hour, Vila participated actively, answered questions, asked her own, demonstrated techniques. I watched a transformation. This was not a traumatized teenager trying to fit in. This was a competent specialist sharing expertise with peers. She needed this, a place where her experiences had value. Lunch period arrived, and I observed anxiously as Vila navigated the cafeteria again. Would she sit with the troublemakers? Would Kess attempt revenge? Would yesterday's incident create ongoing problems? Instead, something unexpected happened. Pip intercepted her. Vela, come sit with us. I told my study group about you, and they want to meet you, and I promised I would not be overwhelming, but I am very excited. So sorry if I am being overwhelming. Pip gestured to a table where 5 students sat, all of them from various academic tracks. Vela hesitated, clearly weighing options. Please. Pip's translator managed to convey genuine hopefulness. We do not bite. Well, Crix does, but only during feeding time, and never at other students. A centurion at the table waved. That was one time, and the disciplinary report was excessive. Vela's lips twitched, almost a smile. She followed Pip to the table. I watched the dynamics unfold. The academic crowd was different from the troublemakers. Less aggressive, more curious. They asked questions about her experiences, but framed them scientifically. How did microgravity affect combat? What were the psychological impacts of extended space travel? Had she observed any interesting xenobiological phenomena? Vila answered thoughtfully, clearly, unused to academic interest in her military background but adapting, and slowly, gradually, she began asking questions back. What were they studying? What were their goals? Why did they choose their particular fields? She was learning to converse, to engage, to be a teenager talking with other teenagers, instead of a soldier reporting to command. Across the cafeteria, I noticed Max, Torque, and Sis watching not jealously, but approvingly, like they understood she needed different kinds of connections. Maybe troublemakers were wiser than I gave them credit for. Fourth period was xenobiology again. Dr. Shin had prepared carefully, sending Vela advanced notice of all demonstrations. When the high-frequency test came, VA calmly inserted ear protection, nodded to acknowledge she was ready, and handled it without incident. Small victories, incremental progress. Then came physical education, and with it my next crisis. The PE instructor, Coach Tarn, believed in competitive team sports as character-building exercises. Today's activity was graviton ball, complex game involving projectiles, shifting gravity fields, and enough physical contact to make it interesting. Teams were selected randomly. Vela ended up on a squad with Kess. I immediately contacted Coach Tarn. Perhaps we should restructure the teams. Negative principle, they need to learn to work together. This is a teaching opportunity. I wanted to argue, but he had a point. Real life required cooperation with people you did not like. Might as well learn now in a controlled environment. The game began. Graviton ball is beautiful chaos, players leaping through low gravity zones using high gravity areas for momentum, passing projectiles in three-dimensional space. It requires teamwork, communication, and split-second coordination. Vela was magnificent. She moved like water flowing through gravity shifts, anticipating trajectories, positioning perfectly. Her military training translated seamlessly to spatial awareness. Kess, to his credit, recognized talent when he saw it. After 2 minutes of gameplay, he started passing to her deliberately, using her positioning, trusting her instincts. They did not speak, did not need to. The rhythm of the game created its own language. Their team won by 12 points as the gravity normalized and players landed. Kess approached Vela. I tensed, ready to intervene. You are good, he said simply. Thank you. I was wrong yesterday about the soldier thing. That is actually impressive. Vela studied him. You were protecting your status. I understand social hierarchies. Still should not have grabbed you. That was disrespectful. A pause, then Vela extended her hand. Human gesture of reconciliation. Fresh start. Kess looked at the hand, then carefully shook it. Fresh start. I sagged with relief. Crisis averted. Through sports, who knew? The final period was interspecies communications, taught by Professor Jana, a Delphian, with the patience of a saint and the insight of a telepath, which technically she was. Today's lesson focused on nonverbal communication across species, how different cultures express emotion, respect, aggression, affection. The students practiced reading body language from recorded interactions. Professor Jana showed a clip of a human and a Krillian negotiating trade. Agreements. Notice how the human maintains eye contact to show sincerity, while the Krillin angles their dorsal plates to indicate respect. Same message. Different methods. Vela, you have worked with multiple species in high stress situations. What have you observed? Vela thought carefully. That biology shapes communication but does not determine it. I knew a Vorthon translator who defected to our side. Her species uses pheromones for emotional signaling, but she learned to read human facial expressions better than most humans. Adaptation is possible when both parties commit to understanding. Excellent observation. And what did you do to communicate with her? I learned basic pheromone responses, wore a chemical badge that could broadcast simple signals, not fluent but enough to show I was trying. Professor Jana's bioluminescent patterns flickered with approval. This is the essence of interspecies relations. Effort matters more than perfection. Trying builds bridges. The class continued with practical exercises. Students paired across species, attempting to communicate emotions without translators. Laughter filled the room as gestures were misinterpreted and pantomes became absurd. Vela partnered with Pip. The Centurion's enthusiasm met the humans' precision. They actually succeeded in conveying complex ideas through improvised sign language and interpretive movement. When they correctly communicated, I am happy we are friends despite our differences. The entire class applauded. Vela smiled. Not a soldier's acknowledgement, a genuine teenage smile. My hearts, both of them, warmed considerably. The day ended without further incident. As students filed out, I found Vela by her locker, organizing materials with military precision. How was today? I asked. Better. She closed her locker. Different. Still hard, but better. That is all we can ask. Progress, not perfection. She nodded, then hesitated. Principal Crustaceans, for trying to understand. It is my job, but also it is my privilege. You have much to teach us. Vela, about resilience, adaptation, courage. You just need to learn. You have other things to offer too, like friendship, curiosity, joy, the things you missed while surviving. I do not know if I remember how to do those things. Then we learn together. I have never taught a teenage combat veteran before. You have never been a regular student before. We are both figuring this out. That earned another almost smile. Fair deal. She left. I watched her go, noting how her posture had relaxed infinitesimally, how her eyes swept the corridor with slightly less intensity. Small changes, incremental healing. The next weeks brought their own challenges and triumphs. Vela continued in combat theory, excelling so thoroughly that Commander Vask recruited her as a teaching assistant. She joined Pip's study group, contributing tactical analysis to their physics projects that earned them top marks. The troublemaker trio adopted her as honorary fourth member. I found them one afternoon planning an elaborate prank involving gravity inverters and gelatin. I confiscated the equipment but admired their creativity. She had another flashback during a surprise fire drill, the alarms triggering combat memories. But this time, Pip and Max were there. They talked her through it, grounded her, reminded her where she was. She recovered faster, supported by friends. Kes became an unlikely ally, turned out. Dreenid honor culture respected strength, and Vela had proven hers. and now he started defending her against whispers and stares, his social status, providing protection she had not asked for but accepted gracefully. Dr. Kelso reported that the nightmares decreased, not gone but less frequent, less intense. Counselor Rand told me Vela was processing trauma healthily, building coping mechanisms, learning to separate past from present. Academically she soared, military discipline translated to study habits. Her unique experiences provided perspectives that enriched classroom discussions. Professors started calling on her, specifically valuing her insights, and socially, gradually she learned to be young, attended a school dance standing awkwardly at the edge until Pip dragged her onto the floor, joined the combat sports team, channeling her skills into competition, even laughed at Max's terrible jokes, the kind of groaning laughter that means friendship. 2 months in, I found her in the observation deck again, same spot as before, but this time she was not alone. Pip sat beside her along with Max, Torque and Sis. They were not talking, just existing together, watching stars drift past. Room for one more, I asked. Ba glanced back. Always, principal. I settled in, extending my limbs comfortably. How are you finding Helix Academy, Miss Thorne? She considered the question seriously. Still hard, still strange, still not what I expected life to be after the war, but good. Surprisingly good. I have learned things here I never learned in combat. How to trust without tactical necessity, how to laugh without guilt, how to be more than what survival made me. That is beautiful. Pip said you should write poetry. Although technically, you just did write poetry that was very poetic. And Pip, Bella said gently, you are rambling. Sorry, I get excited when people share meaningful personal growth. Everyone laughed, even Vela, especially Vela looked at this strange collection of students, the soldier learning to be civilian, the outcast finding community, the troublemakers discovering purpose, the enthusiast teaching joy. All of them different, all of them struggling, all of them learning. This was what education meant, not filling heads with facts, though that mattered, not preparing for careers, though that helped, but teaching young beings how to be whole people, how to carry trauma without letting it define them, how to find connection across impossible differences, how to build futures from broken pasts. Valorn had fought invaders in space, had saved lives, taken lives, survived the unsurvivable. And now she faced her greatest challenge, being a teenager, being a student, being herself, whoever that turned out to be. And you know what? She was winning, not every day, not every moment, but incrementally, persistently, courageously, she was winning. Later that evening, after the students had left and the station lights dimmed, tonight's cycle, I filed my report on Vela's integration progress, success. I wrote qualified success, ongoing success, because that is what education is, ongoing, imperfect, beautifully messy. We do not fix students, we walk beside them while they fix themselves. Dr. Kelso contacted me before I left my office. Principal Crixt, I wanted to thank you. Vela came home today and told me about her friends, actually used the word friends. Do you know how long it has been since she had friends? I can imagine. She is healing slowly, but really healing. Whatever you are doing, it is working. We are doing it together. I corrected myself, the teachers, her classmates. Healing is collaborative work. After disconnecting, I permitted myself a moment of satisfaction. 23 cycles teaching adolescence, 47 species, countless challenges, but this, helping a child soldier become a child. Again, this felt like my finest work. Not because I had all the answers, I definitely did not, but because I had tried, because we all had tried, because sometimes trying is enough. The next morning I arrived early as always, found Vila already there sitting on the steps. Outside the main entrance, she was reading some dense tactical manual, old habits persisting, early start. I observed she looked up. Pip promised to show me their astrophysics project before class, something about gravitational lensing and orbital mechanics. I thought I should review basics first so I can follow along. That is very considerate. Pip is patient with my questions. I want to return the favor. Friendship, reciprocity, growth. Vila, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy here? She closed the book, thinking carefully. Happy is complicated. I am less haunted, more hopeful, learning to separate who I had to be from who I want to be. Is that happiness? I do not know, but it is better than before, so maybe that is enough. Maybe that is everything. I suggested. Pip arrived then, practically bouncing with excitement, carrying equipment and chattering about calculations. Vela stood, brushing off her uniform, preparing for another day. See you in homeroom, principal, she said. See you there, Vela. I watched them go, the enthusiastic centurion and the recovering soldier, an unlikely pair, bound by genuine affection. Behind them, the academy doors opened as other students arrived. Max skateboarding on a gravity board, definitely against regulations. Torque carrying what appeared to be an entire breakfast buffet. Says arguing with Sis about sports statistics. Normal chaos, beautiful chaos, the chaos of young beings learning to navigate existence together. This was my purpose. This messy, complicated, frustrating, wonderful work of guiding adolescents through the treacherous waters of growing up. And sure, sometimes those adolescents had military records and trauma from actual warfare. That just meant we adapted, adjusted, tried harder, because every student deserves the chance to become who they are meant to be, not who circumstances force them to be, not who others expect, but who they choose. Valorn chose to be more than a soldier, chose to be a friend, a student, a teenager, discovering that survival is not the same as living, and we chose to help her make that choice real. I entered my office, prepared for another day of administrative chaos, teaching challenges, and adolescent drama. Somewhere between second and third period, there would probably be a crisis. Someone would definitely break something. Emotions would run high, but there would also be learning, growth, moments of connection, small victories. And really, that is all education ever is, small victories accumulating into transformed lives. Vila Thorn fought invaders in space. Now she was learning to navigate high school. Honestly, I am not sure which required more courage, but I knew which one would define her future, and that future looked